Once upon a time, there was a writer named Emma who was plagued by a persistent case of writer's block. Days went by without her being able to put a single line on paper. Doubt and frustration began to gnaw at her, and she felt increasingly insecure in her ability to write. Emma had already published several successful books, but the block seemed to keep her from continuing to be creative. She stared at the blank screen, wondering if she would ever be able to tell her stories again. One day, Emma came across the story of a famous writer who was also struggling with a long bout of writer's block. But instead of giving up, he decided to fight the block and continue to dedicate himself to writing, even if it was difficult. Inspired by this story, Emma decided to overcome her own block. She realized that writing was more than just writing down words. It was a process that created space for creativity and self-expression. Instead of continuing to fight the block, Emma adopted a different approach. She decided to give herself time and stop stressing. She began observing the world around her, meeting people and having new experiences. Emma found inspiration in the little things of everyday life, a conversation with a stranger, a beautiful landscape, or a simple moment of silence. She realized that her creative ideas had not disappeared, but were just waiting to be rediscovered. Over time, Emma began to write again. At first, it was just short texts or poems, but she found joy and satisfaction in putting her thoughts and feelings on paper. She wrote without expectations and let the words flow without censoring herself. Slowly but surely, Emma's writer's block disappeared. She realized that the only way to overcome the block was to keep going and not give up. Her creativity returned, and she began to tell stories that touched people again. Emma's story reminds us that creativity often requires a process of letting go and trusting ourselves. Sometimes we need to free ourselves from our inner critic and allow ourselves to just write, without expectations or fear of making mistakes. For it is in such moments that we often find our deepest inspiration and discover new facets of our creative potential.